When the last glow of daylight softened over the medieval countryside, a quiet stillness settled on villages made of timber, stone, and winding lanes. It was a time before city lamps and the comfort of predictable knowledge, when the world after sunset felt larger, slower, and full of secrets that the daytime never quite revealed. In those hushed hours, people often watched the shadows stretch across their doorways and wondered what creatures moved within them. And among all the figures that slipped between barns and rooftops, none stirred more curiosity than the silent shape of a wandering cat. Their presence created an unusual mix of comfort and uncertainty, as if they belonged not just to the homes they entered, but to the night itself. Cats had long lived beside humans, keeping close to warm hearths and granaries filled with grain. Yet many people of the Middle Ages viewed them not through the lens of understanding, but through superstition. Their calm movements, sharpened senses, and ability to vanish into the dimness puzzled anyone who tried to make sense of them without any true knowledge of animal behavior. A cat slipping quietly through a moonlit alley could seem almost unreal, a creature neither fully wild nor entirely domestic. To a medieval villager, that mystery alone was enough to turn simple observations into whispered beliefs. As the night deepened, these misunderstandings grew roots. People saw glowing eyes reflecting the faintest moonlight and assumed intention rather than instinct. They noticed how cats preferred to hunt when the village slept and imagined it as a sign of some hidden allegiance with darkness. Even their quiet independence was misunderstood, leading many to think they belonged to forces beyond the ordinary rhythms of the world. And so, gentle animals who were simply following their natural patterns became wrapped in stories that made them seem far more mysterious than they truly were. The calm stillness of medieval nights continued to shape these impressions. Without scientific explanations or reliable knowledge, the human mind filled in the blanks with fear, wonder, and imagination. And while the villages rested behind wooden shutters, the cats wandered freely, unaware of the meanings being attached to their quiet steps. What began as simple observations slowly transformed into belief, and those beliefs would soon shape how entire communities responded to the creatures that moved so gracefully through their evenings. In the gentle quiet of medieval evenings, cats moved with a patience and rhythm that few people truly noticed. They slipped between stacks of firewood, climbed onto low stone walls, and paused to listen to the faintest rustle hidden beneath the night's silence. These small movements were simply the habits of natural hunters, creatures tuned to every sound and shadow. Yet to the eyes of villagers who relied more on stories than on understanding, these actions appeared unusual, even deliberate, as if the cats were responding to signals no human could hear. Their graceful stillness, followed by sudden bursts of motion, added a sense of mystery to an already mysterious world. People saw the cat's independence and mistook it for intention. Unlike livestock, they didn't stay where they were placed. They wandered freely, choosing when to rest and when to roam. This freedom alone was confusing to many in an age where animals were expected to fit neatly into human roles. A dog barked for protection, a horse carried its rider, but the cat answered to no one. It followed its own quiet instincts, slipping out through a half-open door or disappearing behind a storage shed with no explanation. And so, instead of seeing a skilled hunter, villagers saw a creature acting on behalf of something unseen. Their nighttime habits only deepened the confusion. Cats hunted when the world was still, when every small noise echoed more sharply against the cool air. They followed the scurrying of mice and the scratching of rats, using the darkness as their ally. But to anyone watching from the dim safety of a lantern-lit window, these nocturnal journeys became something more than simple animal behavior. They seemed purposeful in a way that felt almost secretive. The rhythm of their movement, quiet steps, long pauses, sudden leaps, looked less like hunting and more like a coded dance meant for the night alone. In truth, the villages needed these hunters more than they realized. Rodents crept into grain stores, chewed through harvest sacks, and spread sickness through narrow streets. Cats were the silent protectors of food and home, but their work went unrecognized by many who preferred stories over observation. Misunderstanding grew easily in a world where knowledge travelled slowly and superstition travelled fast. What people didn't understand they filled with imagination, turning simple instincts into mysterious habits. And so the little hunters continued their quiet patrols, unaware that their greatest challenge was not the creatures they chased, but the beliefs forming in the minds of the people who watched them from the shadows. As darkness deepened over medieval villages, the quiet hours became a canvas for imagination. The streets were empty, the air cool and still, and the soft glow of lanterns flickered against stone walls. In these hushed moments, cats moved like shadows given form, slipping silently between houses and across rooftops, their soft paw steps, barely audible, and eyes that gleamed in the dim light gave them an almost magical presence. People, unaccustomed to such nocturnal movement, began to speak in whispers, sharing stories about the strange behaviour of these nighttime wanderers. Every movement seemed intentional, every glance meaningful, and slowly a reputation began to form around these small, silent hunters. The whispers often carried a tone of caution and wonder. A cat seen perched in a doorway or disappearing behind a barn became a symbol of the unknown. People imagined that they were not simply hunting rodents but serving some greater force, acting as agents of the night itself. The combination of mystery and fear made the animals feel otherworldly. What was natural behaviour to the cats, the hunt, the careful observation, the quiet independence, was interpreted as secretive and deliberate by the human imagination. Villagers, relying on stories rather than understanding, gave meaning to the darkness where none existed. Even the smallest gestures contributed to the tales. A sudden leap, a hiss, or the glow of reflected eyes at the corner of a street could spark long conversations by the fire. Families spoke softly of unseen intentions, sharing the lore that the night carried with it. Over time, these whispers grew into patterns of belief. They were repeated, embellished, and passed down, becoming a way to explain the unknown. Cats became linked with superstition, associated with strange powers that moved in tandem with the darkness. Yet, in reality, the cats remained simply what they were, hunters adapted to the night, moving quietly to survive and protect their own territory. The villagers' stories did not alter their behaviour. The night continued, and the cats continued to glide through it, unaffected by the fears and imaginations surrounding them. Their quiet presence reminded the world that not everything needed explanation, that some mysteries were simply part of the rhythm of life after the sun had set. In the deep calm of medieval evenings, whispers about the night spread slowly, layering mystery upon reality. And though these tales carried a hint of fear, they were also born from fascination, a gentle acknowledgement of creatures moving through a world that humans only partially understood. In the quiet, lamp-lit evenings of medieval towns, fear often crept into the mind more easily than understanding. The world after sunset was slow and shadowed, and every unexplained sound or movement seemed amplified. Cats, with their quiet steps and reflective eyes, became symbols of this uncertainty. People observed them carefully, yet they did not always see what was truly happening. Instead, imagination filled the spaces between their observations, giving ordinary behaviours a weight far greater than they deserved. A simple leap over a fence or a sudden hiss could be interpreted as a sign of hidden intention, something connected to forces beyond the everyday. As these ideas spread, the line between fact and fiction blurred. Villagers began sharing stories that emphasized fear rather than reason. A cat sitting in a barn at night was not merely resting, it was watching, waiting, or serving the darkness. Small misunderstandings grew into elaborate tales. The more people talked, the stronger these beliefs became, and they were repeated so often that even the most ordinary behavior seemed suspicious. By the time anyone considered the simple explanation that cats were following their natural instincts, fear had already taken root, shaping the way the animals were seen in every home and alleyway. The quiet rhythm of the night, which had once been a backdrop for calm observation, was now charged with tension. People spoke in lowered voices, casting wary glances toward doorways and shadows. Children were warned to stay close, and elders shared warnings that had grown more elaborate with each telling. In this way, fear became a force that guided understanding more than observation did. What should have been simple knowledge of natural behavior was replaced with caution, superstition, and stories that reinforced anxiety. Yet the cats themselves remained unchanged. They moved according to instinct, hunting small rodents and exploring their surroundings with a grace untouched by human belief. Their eyes still gleamed in the dark. Their movements still precise and their presence still necessary for the balance of village life. What humans feared was rarely connected to reality, yet it shaped the ways people acted, the ways they interacted with animals, and even the ways they managed their homes and granaries. In the soft, still hours of the medieval night, fear quietly became stronger than facts. It transformed ordinary hunters into creatures of legend, leaving the truth of their small, purposeful lives hidden in the shadows, unseen and unrecognized by those who feared them most. In some medieval towns, fear and superstition eventually gave rise to decisions that changed the very rhythm of daily life. Cats, once silent guardians of grain and homes, began to be seen not as helpers but as harbingers of misfortune. Villagers worried that their quiet independence and nocturnal habits carried unseen threats. In response, some towns chose to turn them away entirely, refusing to allow cats to roam freely through streets, barns, and homes. This quiet exclusion was driven not by evidence but by belief, and it altered the balance that had long existed between humans and these small hunters. The absence of cats transformed the soundscape of the night. No longer did soft paws rustle in the straw or across cobblestones. No longer did sharp eyes track the movements of mice and rats in the shadows. For the villagers, the streets may have felt safer in one sense because the animals they associated with mystery were gone. But at the same time, an unseen consequence began to take hold. Rodents, the very creatures that cats had kept in check, multiplied with greater freedom. Granaries, once lightly patrolled by feline hunters, became vulnerable, and the quiet rhythm of the night shifted towards something less orderly, less safe, and unexpectedly chaotic. People's belief in the danger of cats was deeply rooted in the imagination of the time. The animals were portrayed as servants of the night, mysterious companions of unknown powers, and so communities believed they were protecting themselves by restricting their presence. Stories and warnings circulated around the town squares and quiet alleys, reinforcing the decision and making it seem necessary. Even when some individuals understood the practical benefits that cats offered, the weight of communal superstition often overpowered reason. Despite this, life continued, as it always does, in a world that was both real and imagined. Cats, in other regions or more secluded homes, continued their quiet work, hunting and keeping balance without recognition. In the towns that turned them away, the empty streets were a subtle reminder that what is feared is not always what is harmful, and that absence can sometimes create more problems than presence ever could. Through the soft, shadowed nights of these villages, the story of rejected cats unfolded quietly, leaving behind a subtle lesson that fear, when left unchecked, can shape the world more profoundly than the very facts it ignores, and that even small silent creatures can have a powerful role in the life of a town. The quiet streets and empty barns of towns that had turned cats away soon revealed an unexpected truth. Without the presence of these small hunters, rodents, once kept in check by silent paws and keen eyes, thrived in the darkness. Grain stores became bustling havens, or mice and rats, their tiny movements barely audible but constant, gnawing at supplies and slipping unseen through cracks and crevices. The very danger that villagers had hoped to avoid by banning cats quietly multiplied, creating new problems in the calm of the night. It was a subtle, almost invisible irony. The cats, long feared as creatures of mystery and supposed servants of darkness, had been the most effective guardians against the real threat of disease and crop loss. Yet superstition had blinded people to this simple truth. By rejecting what they did not understand, the towns had invited the very trouble they sought to escape. The quiet night, once patrolled by careful hunters, was now filled with the soft, constant rustle of rodents, reminding the villagers of the unseen consequences of fear-driven decisions. The irony extended beyond practical matters. Nights felt longer and less safe as the balance of nature shifted. People carried lanterns through streets that had once been subtly maintained by feline guardians. They patched holes in granaries, attempted to scare away the small invaders, and struggled with the consequences of a world where understanding had been replaced by imagination. All the while, cats continued their work elsewhere, moving through fields and homes untouched by superstition, silently performing the role that the villagers had dismissed. In this quiet tension, the night itself seemed to hold a lesson. Nature often finds a way to balance itself, even when human interference disrupts its patterns. Yet humans, guided by fear rather than observation, can unintentionally tip the scales, creating challenges that were never truly inevitable. Cats, unaware of the human stories spun around them, continued their careful patrols, demonstrating the simple power of instinct, patience, and quiet presence. And so, in the calm, shadowed hours, the hidden irony of medieval superstition became clear. In trying to avoid danger, the villagers had removed their most capable protectors, leaving the night more restless and unpredictable than ever before. The balance between fear and fact, imagination and reality had quietly shifted, leaving behind lessons that would take centuries to understand fully. Centuries passed, and the quiet rhythm of life slowly revealed the truth that superstition had once obscured. Cats, once feared as mysterious servants of the night, gradually returned to homes and villages, no longer symbols of darkness, but companions and protectors. People began to observe their habits with curiosity rather than fear, learning to appreciate the skill and precision of these small hunters. Their movements, once a source of worry and imagination, were recognized as natural and purposeful. In this way, the stories of old became reminders of how easily misunderstanding can take root when knowledge is limited and fear is allowed to grow. The medieval nights, once filled with whispered warnings and imagined threats, gradually became less shadowed by superstition. Villagers learned that animals like the cats who roamed freely through the quiet streets were not agents of unseen powers, but parts of a living system that helped maintain balance. Grain stores were protected, homes were safer, and the simple presence of these creatures restored a harmony that had been lost when fear outweighed reason. Even the smallest actions, the careful hunt of a cat for a single mouse, reminded people that understanding comes from careful observation, not just stories repeated by generations. These lessons, though quiet, carried forward through time. They became woven into human awareness, shaping how future generations related to the animals that shared their world. Cats were no longer viewed as omens, but as allies, moving through night and day with grace and independence, teaching patience and respect for the rhythms of nature. The night, once a place of mystery and fear, became a space for calm observation, a gentle reminder that what we do not yet understand is not necessarily dangerous. Even today, the echoes of these old beliefs linger in stories and folklore, but they are now tempered by knowledge. Looking back, the tale of medieval cats illustrates the quiet power of perspective, how fear can mislead, how absence can create problems, and how patient observation can restore balance. In every soft paw step through the evening or quiet leap across a rooftop, there is a reminder that life is full of subtle lessons, and that understanding, like the gentle rhythm of the night, comes to those who are willing to watch and it. Through these centuries, the story of cats and superstition remains a calm testament to human curiosity, imagination, and the timeless dance between fear and understanding, a story carried softly through time, like the quiet footsteps of a cat in the dark.